The massive space station hung in the darkness like a jewel made of metal and light. It was bigger than most moons, with towers that stretched for miles and docking bays that could hold entire fleets. This was the Galactic Council Station, the center of power for hundreds of alien civilizations. Inside the main chamber, creatures from across the galaxy sat in their assigned seats. The room was enormous, with a dome that showed the stars above. Each species had their own section, designed for their unique needs. Some breathed different gases, others needed special gravity, and a few existed as pure energy. Commander Sarah, Chen walked through the entrance with her small team of humans. She wore a simple blue uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. Her team carried briefcases filled with documents about Earth's desire to join the galactic community. They had traveled for months to reach this place, hoping to make friends among the stars. The moment they entered, the talking stopped. Thousands of alien eyes turned to look at the humans. Some eyes were large and black, others glowed with strange colors, and a few weren't eyes at all but sensors that could see in ways humans couldn't imagine. A low rumble of laughter started from one section and spread across the chamber. The humans walked to their assigned spot, a small area marked for primitive species under review. The label made Chen's jaw tighten, but she kept walking. The council speaker stood up from the center platform. His name was Vexthal, and he belonged to a species called the Corvan Empire. He was 9 feet tall with thick armor covering his body. Scars crossed his face, showing he had been in many battles. His forearms ended in claws that could crush steel. "Welcome, fellow council members," Vexthal said in a voice that boomed across the chamber. "Today we have a special treat. The mammals from the third planet of a yellow star want to join our civilized galaxy." More laughter echoed through the chamber. A creature made of living crystal spoke up. "Have you seen their ships, Vexthal? They still use chemical rockets." "Chemical rockets?" The Zephyrian's voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Yes," added another voice. This came from the Hive Collective, a species that looked like giant insects. "Our scouts watched them for years. Their biggest warship is smaller than our cargo vessels. They fight with metal bullets and explosives." A being of pure light floated near the ceiling. The Luminari rarely spoke, but when they did, their words carried weight. "These humans have barely left their home system. They know nothing of quantum mechanics or stellar engineering. What could they possibly offer us?" Vexthal raised one of his arms, and the chamber fell silent. "Let us hear what these humans have to say. Then we can decide if they deserve even the lowest rank in our civilization." Commander Chen stood up slowly. She had prepared for this moment for years, studying alien languages and customs. She knew they would mock humanity, but seeing it happen still hurt. Around her, her team looked nervous but determined. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Chen began, her voice clear and strong. "Humanity comes to you in peace. We seek friendship, trade, and knowledge. We know we are new to space travel, but we learn quickly. We have much to offer." "Like what?" Vexthal interrupted. "Your primitive weapons, your slow ships, your backwards technology." Chen reached into her briefcase and pulled out a small device. "We offer creativity, innovation, the ability to solve problems in new ways." She activated the device and a hologram appeared showing Earth's greatest achievements: art, music, literature, and scientific discoveries. The aliens watched with barely hidden amusement. A slug-like creature from the Gastropod Confederation spoke in a wet, gurgling voice. "Pretty pictures and noise. Very impressive for children, I suppose." The insect-like Hive Collective buzzed with what sounded like laughter. "Our larvae create better entertainment than this. At least their art serves a purpose in the hive structure." Chen felt her face grow red, but she continued. "We also offer our dedication to peace. Humanity has learned from its mistakes. We've ended wars on our planet and now work together as one species." "How touching," Vexthal said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But peace is a luxury only strong species can afford. The galaxy is dangerous, human. There are pirates, raiders, and empires that take what they want. Your peace will not protect you from a plasma cannon." A new voice spoke up. It came from a being that looked like a walking tree with glowing sap. "The Arbor Collective agrees. With Speaker Vexthal, we have seen many peaceful species. Most become extinct or slaves within a few decades of joining galactic civilization." Other voices joined in, each one dismissing humanity's potential contribution. They talked about humans like they were talking about pets or curiosities. Some, suggested putting Earth in a protected zone like a nature preserve. Others wondered if humans would make good servants for more advanced species. Through it all, Chen stood straight and listened. Her team looked angry and hurt, but she had warned them this might happen. Earth's leaders had prepared her for this exact situation. Finally, Vexthal called for order. "We have heard enough. The Galactic Council will now vote on humanity's application." He looked directly at Chen with his cold reptilian eyes. The options are full membership, associate membership, observer status, or rejection. The vote didn't take long. Full membership received 0 votes. Associate membership received 0 votes. Observer status received 2 votes from species Chen had never heard of. The rest voted for something called probationary oversight status. "Congratulations, humans," Vexthal announced with mock ceremony. "You have been granted probationary oversight status. This means you may observe council meetings but may not speak unless asked. You will follow all galactic laws and regulations. Your ships will be monitored at all times. Any violation will result in immediate expulsion from civilized space." Chen knew what this meant. Humanity would be treated like children who needed constant supervision. They would have no voice in decisions that affected them. They would be at the mercy of species who saw them as inferior. As the other aliens began filing out of the chamber, many stopped to look at the humans. Some pointed and whispered. Others made sounds that might have been laughter. A few shook their heads as if they pitied these primitive creatures. The Corvan delegation walked past the human section. One of them, a younger warrior with fewer scars than Vexthal, stopped and spoke to Chen. "Word of advice, mammal. Stay in your home system. The galaxy is not safe for weak species. The Corvan Empire protects those under our rule, but we do not protect observers." After the chamber emptied, Chen and her team sat alone in their small section. The silence felt heavy after all the noise and mockery. One of her team members, a young diplomat named Rodriguez, looked like he might cry. "Commander," Rodriguez said quietly, "how do we report this back to Earth Command? How do we tell them that we're seen as nothing more than primitive animals?" Chen looked up at the dome showing the stars above. Somewhere out there was Earth, waiting for news of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. She thought about all the hopes and dreams riding on this mission. She pulled out a small encrypted communication device that looked like any normal Earth technology. But Chen knew it was much more than it appeared. She activated it and began recording a message. "Earth Command, this is Commander Chen. Mission status, successful." She paused and looked around the empty chamber. "They see us exactly as we hoped they would. Harmless, primitive, completely unthreatening." A small smile crossed her face. "They have no idea what's coming. Continue with Phase 2 as planned. Chen out." She closed the device and stood up. The other members of her team looked confused, but they trusted her. They had questions, but they knew better than to ask them here, where alien sensors might be listening. As they walked toward their ship, Chen felt a mixture of emotions. The mockery had stung, but it had also served its purpose. The galaxy now saw humanity as weak and backward. That was exactly what Earth needed them to think. The real game was just beginning. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a place that didn't exist on any public map, Dr. Marcus Webb walked through corridors that hummed with hidden power. The facility stretched for miles underground, carved from solid rock and shielded from every type of scan the galaxy had ever invented. Admiral Patricia Ross met him in the main laboratory, a space filled with technology that would have amazed the aliens who had just mocked humanity. Holographic displays showed star charts, weapon designs, and ship blueprints that glowed with impossible possibilities. "How did Chen do?" Ross asked. She was a small woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years preparing for this moment, ever since the first alien probe had been secretly captured over Nevada. Webb smiled as he pulled up the transmission from the Galactic Council. "Perfect. They think we're harmless primitives, who can barely leave our own planet. Some of them were actually laughing when she showed them our achievements." "Good," Ross said, watching Chen's recorded message. "The longer they underestimate us, the better. How's Project Prometheus coming along?" Webb led her to a massive viewing window that looked down into an enormous underground chamber. There, floating in a field of blue energy, was humanity's greatest secret. The ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was sleek like a shark, with curves that seemed to bend light around them. It didn't look like any human ship the aliens had ever seen because they had never seen humanity's real Ships. She's ready for field testing, Webb said with pride in his voice. 3 years of work and she's everything we hoped she would be. The ship below them was called the UES Prometheus, and it represented everything humanity had learned from decades of secret contact with alien technology. Not the official first contact that had just happened at the Council, but the real first contact that had been happening since the 1940s. Ross remembered those early days when crashed alien ships were taken to secret facilities and studied by Earth's best scientists. The aliens had been scouts and pirates, not representatives of any major civilization. Some had crashed by accident, others had been shot down when they tried to harm humans. The aliens made their biggest mistake when they assumed we were stupid, Ross said, watching the Prometheus hover in its energy field. They saw us using chemical rockets and metal bullets and they thought that was all we could do. Webb nodded. They never considered that we might be hiding our real capabilities. Every major power in human history has done it. Why would space be different? The truth was that humanity had been preparing for this moment for over 70 years. Every crashed ship had been studied and improved upon. Every piece of alien technology had been taken apart, understood, and rebuilt better than the original. But humans had done something the aliens never expected. Instead of just copying their technology, humanity had made it better. Human engineers took energy weapons from one species, shield technology from another, and engine designs from a third, then combined them in ways their original creators never imagined. "Show me the weapon systems again," Ross said. Webb touched a control, and the ship below them opened like a flower. Hidden compartments revealed weapons that could tear apart planets, quantum disruptors that could unmake matter itself, singularity torpedoes that created tiny black holes, plasma cannons that burned hotter than stars. The aliens think in straight lines, Webb explained. The Corvins make big, powerful ships that rely on heavy armor and massive guns. The Zephyrians use energy shields and crystal-based weapons. The Luminari manipulate light and radiation. Each species has their specialty, but humans adapt, Ross finished. We take the best ideas from everyone and make them work together. That was humanity's secret advantage. While alien species had evolved along specific paths that made them good at certain things, humans had evolved to be generalists. They could learn anything, adapt to anything, and combine ideas in ways that seemed impossible to more specialized minds. Webb pulled up another display showing the Prometheus's most important feature. The stealth system is our masterpiece. We took Zephyrian light-bending technology, combined it with Luminari energy manipulation, added some theoretical physics from the Aquarian database, and wrapped it all in human engineering. The result was a ship that was completely invisible to every type of sensor in the galaxy. It didn't just hide from radar or visual scanning. It was invisible to quantum sensors, psychic detection, temporal analysis, and methods of finding things that humans didn't even have names for. "How many ships do we have ready?" Ross asked. 12 of the Prometheus class are fully operational, Webb replied. Another 30 are in various stages of construction. The factories in the asteroid belt are working around the clock. Ross smiled. The asteroid belt factories were another secret the aliens knew nothing about. While they watched humanity's primitive mining operations on Earth, real mining was happening throughout the solar system using technology that would have shocked them. And the crews? Handpicked from our best. Captain Morrison will command the Prometheus. He has more combat experience against alien technology than anyone else alive. Jake Morrison was a legend in the classified world of Earth's real space program. He had been fighting alien pirates and raiders for 15 years, protecting humanity's secret expansion into space. The aliens thought humans had barely reached Mars, but the truth was that human colonies existed throughout the solar system, all hidden by the same stealth technology that protected the Prometheus. Ross walked to another window that showed the training facility. Human soldiers were practicing with weapons that fired concentrated starlight, wearing armor that could survive the heart of a sun, and learning to fight in zero gravity against alien combat forms. "The Corvins are making their move," Ross said, checking the intelligence reports. "Our spy networks are reporting massive fleet movements throughout their empire." Webb nodded grimly. "They're planning something big. Our analysts think they're preparing for a major expansion campaign." "Let them come," Ross said quietly. "Earth is ready." The facility around them was just one of dozens hidden across the solar system. There were ship construction yards inside asteroids, weapon testing ranges on the dark side of the moon, and research stations in the clouds of Jupiter, all of it invisible to alien sensors, all of it preparing for the day when humanity would reveal its true nature. The Council thinks we're weak, Webb said. They think our little display of primitive technology is all we have. Good, Ross replied. Fear is a weapon, but so is overconfidence. The aliens are overconfident. They see a species that just learned to build chemical rockets and assume that's our limit. They never ask what else we might be hiding. She activated a communication system that reached across the solar system to every hidden base and secret facility. This is Admiral Ross. Begin Phase 2. The masquerade is over. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity is really capable of. Throughout the solar system, humans began preparing for war. Not the war the aliens expected, with primitive weapons and desperate tactics, but a war fought with technology that surpassed anything the galaxy had ever seen. In the asteroid belt, invisible factories worked faster, building ships that could appear and disappear at will. On hidden bases, soldiers trained with weapons that could crack moons in half. In laboratories that didn't officially exist, scientists perfected technologies that made the impossible routine. The aliens had made a critical mistake. They had judged humanity based on what they chose to show, not what they chose to hide. Every species in the galaxy made their strength obvious, displaying their power for all to see. Only humans had learned the value of appearing weak while becoming strong. Webb looked at the Prometheus one more time. She's beautiful, isn't she? Ross nodded. She's going to change everything. The galaxy has been ruled by fear for too long. Species submit to stronger powers or get destroyed, but humanity offers a third option. What's that? Ross smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. We show them what happens when they pick on someone who can fight back. The countdown had begun. Soon, the aliens would learn that the primitive humans they had mocked were actually the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever produced, and the lesson would be written in fire across the stars. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. Ships arrived from across the galaxy, their crews carrying news of destruction and death. The massive chamber that had once been filled with casual conversation and diplomatic politeness now buzzed with fear and panic. Commander Chen sat in the human section, watching as species after species reported the same terrible news. The Corvan Empire had begun their conquest of the galaxy, and they were not being subtle about it. A representative from the Aquarian Collective stood at the speaker's podium, his blue skin pale with shock. Water dripped from his gills as he spoke, in a voice that trembled with emotion. They came without warning, the Aquarian said. 50 Corvan dreadnoughts appeared in our home system. We tried to negotiate. We offered them anything they wanted. They responded by destroying our planetary defense grid and demanding total surrender. He activated a holographic display that showed the Aquarian homeworld. It had once been a beautiful, blue planet covered in crystal cities that floated on endless oceans. Now it was a burned wasteland of boiling seas and shattered continents. When we refused to become slaves, the Aquarian continued, they began orbital bombardment. 3 billion Aquarians died in the first hour. The survivors, have been taken to work camps. Gasps and cries of horror filled the chamber. Even species that had little contact with the Aquarians were shocked by the brutality of the attack. Entire civilizations had been wiped out in wars before, but usually after long conflicts with chances for surrender and negotiation. This was different. This was extermination for the sake of making a point. Speaker Vexthal stood up from his platform, but now he looked different than he had during humanity's first appearance. His armor was polished and new, with fresh decorations that showed his rising status in the Corvan Empire. When he smiled, his teeth looked sharper than before. Fellow council members, Vexthal announced, the Corvan Empire regrets the necessity of these actions, but the galaxy has become soft and weak. Peace has made you all forget the natural order of things. A crystalline Zephyrian representative flashed with angry light. Natural order? You murdered billions of innocent beings. Vexthal's forearms spread wide in a gesture of mock sympathy. The strong rule, the weak serve or die. This has always been the way of the universe. The Corvan Empire is simply reminding everyone of this basic truth. More reports came in as the session continued. The insect worlds of the Hive Collective had lost 12 colonies in coordinated attacks. The energy beings of the Luminari had seen their sacred stars turned into weapons against them. Even the massive tree ships of the Arbor Collective had been burned by Corvan plasma cannons. War Commander Thakmor entered the chamber with an escort of Corvan soldiers. He was even larger than Vexthal, with scars that told stories of 100 battles. His armor was black with red markings that showed his victories. When he walked, The floor shook under his weight. "Citizens of the galaxy," Takmor announced, in a voice that boomed like thunder, "the Corvin Empire offers you a simple choice. Submit to our rule and live as our subjects, or resist and face the same fate as the Aquarians." He activated his own holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with Corvin territory marked in red. The red zones had grown enormously in just the past few weeks. Hundreds of systems that had once been independent now flew the Corvin flag. "You have 72 hours to make your decision," Takmor continued. "After that time, any species that has not formally surrendered will be considered hostile. We will demonstrate the consequences of hostility by destroying their homeworlds." The chamber erupted in panic. Representatives from dozens of species began shouting questions and protests. Some demanded to know if the council had any plan to fight back. Others asked about evacuation procedures for their homeworlds. A few began transmitting surrender messages immediately. Through it all, Commander Chen sat quietly in the human section, watching and listening. Her face showed the same fear and shock as everyone else, but inside she felt something different. She felt ready. The crystalline Zephyrians were the first to try organizing a response. Their representative, a being whose body looked like living, Diamond, stood up and addressed the chamber. "We cannot submit to this tyranny," the Zephyrian declared. "The combined free worlds must stand together. Our energy shields can protect our planets while we build a joint fleet." Takmor laughed, and the sound was like rocks grinding together. "Your shields? We have studied your technology for decades. Our quantum disruptors will tear through your defenses like they are made of paper." The Hive Collective buzzed with urgent communication between their representatives. Finally, one of them spoke. "The collective calculates only a 12% chance of successful resistance. Survival requires cooperation with the stronger force." "Exactly," Vexthal said approvingly. "The Hive Collective understands reality. Submit now, and your species will find places in the new galactic order. Resist and face extinction." More species began to waver. The mathematics were simple and brutal. The Corvin Empire had over 300 dreadnoughts, each one capable of destroying entire fleets. Their technology was proven in battle, their soldiers were experienced, and their tactics were ruthless. Against them, the independent worlds had ships designed for exploration and trade, not war. The Luminari representative, a being of pure energy that looked like a miniature star, flickered with distress. "What of the ancient treaties? The laws that have kept peace for 1,000 years?" Takmor gestured dismissively. "Laws exist only as long as someone has the power to enforce them. The Corvin Empire is now the only power that matters in this galaxy." Chen stood up slowly. Around her, the chamber fell silent as everyone remembered that the primitive humans were still there. Many of the aliens looked embarrassed as if they had forgotten about the weakest species in the room. "War Commander Takmor," Chen said in a clear, steady voice, "what you're describing isn't order. It's just organized bullying." Laughter rippled through the Corvin delegation. Takmor looked down at the small human woman with amusement. "And what would you know about order, mammal? Your species can barely fly between planets." "We know about bullies," Chen replied calmly. "And we know what happens to them eventually." More laughter from the Corvins. Takmor seemed to find the humans' defiance entertaining. "Are you threatening the Corvin Empire, little creature? Your entire species couldn't scratch the paint on one of our dreadnoughts." Chen pulled out her communication device. It looked exactly like the primitive technology the aliens expected humans to use. "I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just making an observation about universal constants." She activated the device and spoke into it clearly enough for everyone in the chamber to hear. "Earth Command, this is Commander Chen. The Corvin Empire has declared war on all free species in the galaxy. Request permission to drop the masquerade." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the Corvins stopped laughing as they tried to understand what the human was saying. A voice answered from the device, coming through clearly despite being transmitted across thousands of light years. "Permission granted, Commander. Execute Revelation Protocol. Show them who we really are." Takmor's amusement turned to confusion and then anger. "What is this ridiculous theater? Do you think your primitive tricks will frighten the Corvin Empire?" Chen looked up at the massive alien warrior and smiled. It was not a nice smile. "War Commander, I have a message from my government. Earth formally rejects the Corvin Empire's demand for surrender. Furthermore, we're offering protection to any species that wants to resist your tyranny." The laughter returned, louder than before. Thakmor seemed genuinely delighted by the humans' apparently suicidal bravery. Protection? From you? Your entire fleet couldn't defeat a single Corvan patrol ship. You're probably right about that, Chen agreed. Our public fleet is exactly what you think it is. Primitive chemical rockets and metal bullets, completely useless against your technology. She paused and looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching her. But that's not our real fleet. Confusion spread through the chamber. Representatives began whispering to each other, trying to understand what the human meant. Thakmor's amusement was turning to irritation. Enough of this nonsense. If Earth wants to be made an example of, so be it. I will personally lead the fleet that destroys your pathetic homeworld. The entire galaxy will watch as we demonstrate what happens to species that defy the Corvan Empire. How long do you need to get ready? Chen asked politely. The question caught Thakmor off guard. What? How long do you need to prepare your fleet for the attack on Earth? We want to make sure you bring enough ships. It would be embarrassing if you showed up unprepared. Thakmor's confusion turned to rage. Being mocked by a primitive mammal was beyond insulting. 48 hours, he growled. In 48 hours the Corvan Armada will arrive in your home system. We will broadcast your destruction to every world in the galaxy, as a lesson to any who think they can resist us. Chen nodded and made a note in her device. 48 hours. That should be enough time for us to prepare the welcome committee. She looked around the chamber one more time, meeting the eyes of as many alien representatives as she could. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, watching the tactical display as 300 Corvan dreadnoughts moved into Earth's solar system. Each enemy ship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Their arrival had been detected the moment they dropped out of hyperspace beyond Pluto's orbit. Impressive, Morrison said quietly. His crew of 40 humans worked at stations around him, their faces calm despite the overwhelming enemy force approaching their homeworld. They certainly know how to make an entrance. The main screen showed the Corvan fleet in perfect formation, a wall of armored death moving steadily toward the third planet from Sol. At the center of the formation was Thakmor's flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even the other dreadnoughts. It was painted black with red markings that told the story of every world the Corvan Empire had conquered. Sir, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the communications station, the enemy is broadcasting on all frequencies. They want the entire galaxy to watch this. Morrison nodded. That was exactly what Earth wanted too. For 70 years humanity had hidden its true capabilities from the galaxy. Today that secret would end. On Earth, millions of people went about their daily lives as if nothing was happening. The Corvan fleet was still hours away, and Earth's leaders had decided not to cause panic with evacuation orders that wouldn't work anyway. If the plan failed, there would be nowhere to run. But in hidden bunkers and secret facilities around the world, humanity's real defenders were ready. Admiral Ross watched from her command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, surrounded by displays that showed not just the approaching enemy, but also the positions of Earth's true fleet. All stealth ships report ready, came the calm voice of Fleet Commander Santos. Prometheus, Icarus, Phoenix, and 9 others are in position around the solar system. Ross smiled grimly. The aliens thought they were facing Earth's pitiful surface. Fleet of 15 ships. They had no idea that 43 invisible vessels were already surrounding them, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The Corvan fleet slowed as it approached Earth's orbital defense platforms. These were the weapons the aliens had observed and catalogued during their surveillance of humanity. Primitive nuclear missiles, chemical lasers, and kinetic railguns that might have been impressive 1,000 years ago, but were useless against modern alien shields. War Commander Thakmor's voice boomed across the galaxy as his flagship transmitted to every world that had receivers. His image appeared on screens from one edge of known space to the other, showing the massive alien warrior in his battle armor. Behold, Galaxy, Thakmor announced, the fate of all who defy the Corvan Empire. The humans have refused our generous offer of servitude. Now they will serve as an example to any other species foolish enough to resist. Earth's surface fleet moved to intercept the Corvan Armada. 12 destroyers and 3 cruisers, exactly the ships the aliens expected to see. They opened fire with everything they had, launching nuclear missiles and firing laser arrays that lit up the darkness of space. The weapons struck the Corvan shields and dissipated harmlessly. A few alien ships didn't even bother to return fire, treating the human attack like an annoying insect. The others launched plasma bolts that tore through the primitive human vessels like paper. Within minutes, Earth's visible fleet was burning wreckage drifting in space. The galaxy watched as humanity's defenders were swept aside by the overwhelming power of the Corvan Empire. On 1,000 worlds, alien leaders transmitted their formal surrenders, terrified by the display of Corvan might. "Pathetic," Thakmor declared, his voice carrying to every corner of the galaxy. "This is what becomes of species that resist the natural order. Now witness the price of defiance." The Corvan fleet formed into bombardment formation, positioning their massive guns to rain destruction on Earth cities. Plasma cannons that could melt continents charged with deadly energy, quantum torpedoes that could crack a planet's core armed themselves for launch. Thakmor raised his clawed hand to give the order for planetary bombardment. 3 billion humans would die in the next few minutes, and their deaths would ensure that no other species would dare resist Corvan rule. "Fire," Thakmor commanded. That was when the impossible happened. A ship materialized directly behind Thakmor's flagship, appearing from absolutely nothing like a ghost suddenly becoming real. It was sleek and deadly, built for speed and stealth, rather than the brute force approach favored by alien civilizations. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it hard to focus on even when it was fully visible. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earthship Prometheus," a human voice cut through all communication channels. "War Commander Thakmor, you have 30 seconds to withdraw your fleet from this system, or we will demonstrate why you should never threaten humanity." The Corvan bridge fell silent with shock. Thakmor spun around to see the human ship hanging in space behind his flagship like a predator stalking its prey. His sensors showed nothing but empty space, but his eyes could clearly see the enemy vessel. "Impossible," Thakmor whispered. Then louder, his voice cracking with rage. "Impossible! Our sensors show nothing. Where did you come from?" Morrison's voice remained calm and professional. "We've been here the whole time, War Commander. You just weren't looking hard enough." Thakmor's shock turned to fury. Being surprised by a primitive species was humiliating beyond description. "All ships, target that vessel, destroy it immediately." 300 Corvan dreadnoughts turned their weapons toward the lone human ship. The firepower they unleashed could have destroyed entire fleets, enough plasma and quantum energy to sterilize a dozen worlds. The galaxy watched in horror, expecting to see the human ship vaporized instantly. The energy struck the Prometheus and simply vanished. The ship's adaptive shielding absorbed the massive attack and converted it into harmless radiation that dispersed into space. The human vessel didn't even slow down. "Our turn," Morrison said quietly. The Prometheus unleashed hell. Quantum disruptor arrays tore through Corvan shields like they were made of paper. The beams didn't just damage the enemy ships. They unmade them at the atomic level, causing massive dreadnoughts to simply cease to exist. Singularity torpedoes created localized black holes that swallowed entire vessels, crushing them out of existence in seconds. But the most shocking weapon was the plasma system. Instead of the crude energy weapons used by most species, the Prometheus fired concentrated stellar matter, pieces of stars contained in magnetic bottles and hurled at near light speed. When they struck their targets, the results were spectacular. In less than 10 minutes, Captain Morrison's single ship had destroyed over 100 Corvan dreadnoughts. The remainder of the fleet, including Thakmor's flagship, tried desperately to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. That was when the rest of Earth's real fleet revealed itself. Across the solar system, invisible ships decloaked in perfect coordination. The Icarus appeared directly in front of the fleeing Corvan ships, cutting off their escape route. The Phoenix materialized above them, raining destruction from an unexpected angle. Dozens of other human vessels surrounded the alien fleet like wolves surrounding a herd of prey. Each human ship was a masterpiece of adaptive technology, combining the best innovations of 100 alien species and improving upon them with human creativity. They moved with impossible grace, appearing and disappearing at will, striking with precision that no alien tactician had ever seen. The Corvan fleet, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, was being systematically destroyed by ships they couldn't see coming and weapons they couldn't defend against. War Commander Thakmor watched in disbelief as his mighty armada was reduced to burning wreckage. "Surrender," Morrison's voice cut through the chaos. "Power down your weapons, and prepare to be boarded, or we will destroy every ship in your fleet." Thakmor's pride warred with his survival instinct. The Corvan Empire had never surrendered to anyone, but as he watched another squadron of his ships disappear into singularities, he realized that pride was a luxury he could no longer afford. Thakmor's voice cracked. "The Corvan fleet surrenders." The words echoed across the galaxy, carried by the same communication network that was supposed to broadcast humanity's destruction. Instead, A billion alien worlds watched as the most feared military force in known space was humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive mammals. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Morrison allowed himself a small smile. Phase 3 complete. Admiral, the galaxy knows who we really are now. Admiral Ross's voice came back from Earth, filled with satisfaction. Well done, Captain. Now comes the hard part. We have to convince them that we're the good guys. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remains of the Corvin fleet. In the distance he could see the lights of Earth, the blue-green world that had just announced itself as the new major power in galactic civilization. I think they'll listen to us now, he said quietly. Fear has a way of making people pay attention. Across the galaxy, alien leaders who had been preparing surrender messages suddenly found themselves reconsidering their options. The primitive humans had just done something no one thought possible. They had defeated the Corvin Empire. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from hundreds of worlds sat in stunned silence, their eyes fixed on the holographic display that showed the wreckage of the Corvin Armada floating in Earth's solar system. The most feared military force in the galaxy had been destroyed in less than an hour, by a species they had all considered primitive. Commander Sarah Chen walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the silence. She no longer wore the simple blue uniform of a junior diplomat. Instead, she wore the formal dress uniform of Earth's real space fleet, complete with decorations that told the story of humanity's secret war against alien pirates and raiders. Behind her walked Dr. Marcus Webb and Admiral Patricia Ross, no longer hiding in underground bunkers but standing openly as representatives of humanity's true power. The aliens who had mocked them just weeks before now stared at them with expressions ranging from fear to amazement to desperate hope. Fellow members of the galactic community, Chen began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. I believe we need to have an honest conversation about the future. War Commander Thakmor sat in a containment field near the speaker's platform, his black armor scarred and dented from his failed invasion of Earth. His forearms were secured in energy, restraints, and his scarred face showed the bitter defeat of a warrior who had never known loss before today. The Corvin Empire is finished, Chen continued, looking directly at the captured war commander. Your fleets are destroyed, your leaders are prisoners, and your conquered worlds are already declaring their independence. The galaxy is free from your tyranny. A ripple of motion went through the chamber as representatives realized the full meaning of her words. The Corvin Empire, which had dominated galactic politics for centuries, no longer existed as a military power. The balance of power had shifted completely in a single day. Speaker Vexthal, who had once mocked humanity's primitive technology, now sat quietly in his section. His scarred armor told the story of his own capture when human ships had appeared out of nowhere to liberate Corvin prison camps. He had spent 3 days in a human detention facility, learning what it felt like to be powerless. But that's not why we're here, Chen said, drawing attention back to herself. The Corvin Empire is gone, but the question remains, what comes next? She activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. Red zones that had once marked Corvin territory were now flashing with status updates as world after world declared their freedom. But without the Empire's iron grip holding them together, many systems were descending into chaos. Dr. Webb stepped forward to address the chamber. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb, and I've spent the last 30 years studying alien technology. Not copying it, not stealing it, but learning from it and improving upon it. Humanity has a gift for taking ideas from different sources and combining them in new ways. He gestured to display screens that showed human hybrid technology, weapons that combined Zephyrian energy manipulation with luminary stellar engineering, ships that used hive collective swarm tactics enhanced with Aquarian flow dynamics, and shields that incorporated defensive concepts from a dozen different species. But our greatest achievement isn't any single piece of technology, Webb continued. It's the realization that cooperation produces better results than domination. Admiral Ross took her turn to speak, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. Humanity has been watching galactic civilization for over 70 years. We've seen species destroyed by stronger neighbors, worlds enslaved by more advanced empires, and entire civilizations wiped out because they couldn't defend themselves. She paused and looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. We've also seen the potential for something better. The galaxy has incredible diversity, thousands of species with unique abilities and perspectives, Imagine what we could accomplish if we worked together instead of fighting each other. A crystalline Zephyrian representative flashed with nervous light. What? What do you want from us? You have the power to conquer us all. Your technology is beyond anything we imagined possible. Why haven't you simply taken control? Chen smiled at the question. Because that's not who we are. Humanity learned a long time ago that ruling through fear creates more problems than it solves. We're not interested in building an empire. Then what are you interested in? Asked the Hive Collective representative, its insectoid features showing genuine confusion. Partnership, Ross answered simply. We're proposing a new kind of galactic organization. Not a council where the strong dictate to the weak, but a true alliance, where every species has a voice and decisions are made by consensus. The chamber erupted in surprised whispers and discussions. The idea of a galactic government based on equality, rather than military strength, was revolutionary. Most species had never considered such a possibility. A representative from the Arbor Collective, one of the tree-like beings whose ships looked like flying forests, raised a branch-like arm. How would such an alliance function? What would prevent stronger species from dominating weaker ones? Webb activated another display showing human defensive technology. Earth is offering to share certain non-military technologies with any species that joins the alliance. More importantly, we're offering protection. Our stealth fleets will patrol trade routes and respond to any aggression between member species. You're talking about being galactic police, observed a slug-like creature from the Gastropod Confederation. We're talking about being galactic peacekeepers, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Police enforce laws from above. Peacekeepers protect agreements made between equals. Thakmor finally spoke from his containment field, his voice filled with bitter anger. You think your pretty words will change anything? The galaxy runs on power, not cooperation. Without strength to back up your treaties, they are meaningless. Chen walked over to stand in front of the captured war commander. You're right about one thing, Thakmor. Treaties without enforcement are meaningless. But you're wrong about power. Real power isn't the ability to destroy, it's the ability to protect what matters. She turned back to address the chamber. Humanity is offering to share our defensive technologies and protection services, but only with species that agree to certain principles. No wars of conquest, no slavery or forced servitude, no genocide or species extinction. Disputes between member worlds will be resolved through negotiation and arbitration. And if someone breaks these principles, asked a representative from the energy-based Luminari. Admiral Ross stepped forward, her expression growing cold. Then they discover why the Corvan Empire no longer exists. The threat was subtle, but unmistakable. Humanity offered partnership to those who wanted peace, but destruction to those who chose war. The galaxy had just seen what human weapons could do to the most powerful military force in known space. Over the next several hours, the debate continued. Some species worried about giving up their independence to join a human-led alliance. Others feared being left defenseless if they didn't accept Earth's protection. A few suggested that humanity might be lying about their peaceful intentions. The breakthrough came when Vexthal finally stood up to address the chamber. The former speaker of the council looked older and more tired than anyone had ever seen. I have spent the last week in human custody, he said quietly. I was captured when their ships liberated Corvan prison camps throughout the galaxy. I expected to be tortured, enslaved, or executed. Instead, I was given medical treatment for my injuries and allowed to communicate with my surviving people. He paused, his scarred face showing emotions that Corvans rarely displayed in public. The humans could have left us in those camps to die. They could have bombed our homeworld in revenge for our crimes. Instead, they are offering us a chance to rebuild our civilization as equals in their alliance. The chamber fell silent as representatives absorbed the implications of Vexthal's words. Even their former enemies were being offered redemption rather than destruction. I am not saying we should trust them completely, Vexthal continued. But I am saying we should judge them by their actions, not their words. And their actions suggest they mean what they say about cooperation. The vote was closer than Chen had hoped, but decisive enough to matter. 67% of galactic species agreed to join the new alliance, which they decided to call the Galactic Defense Confederation. The remaining species chose to remain independent, but most signed non-aggression treaties with the Confederation. 3 months later, Chen stood on the observation deck of the new Confederation headquarters, AAE, massive space station built using technology from dozens of member species. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see the combined fleet of the Alliance. human stealth ships flying alongside Zephyrian crystal vessels, luminary energy beings working with hive collective swarms, and former Corvin ships now, serving as peacekeeping vessels. Admiral Ross joined her at the window, watching as a group of young beings from different species trained together in zero-gravity combat techniques. "Think it will work?" Ross asked.